that represents the beta settings for the Times application. As you can see, I have multiple sections here. Each section contains many different fields. I can turn them on and off. I can have a more complex than just primitives. I can have enumerations or objects. And when I do changes, I can go and review them, and then I can save or dismiss, depending on what I really want. So let's look at how that's implemented. So first off, this whole screen, the developer had to only write this code. This is literally all the code that was written by me. The functions that this is calling is actually all code generated by Sorcery. So Sorcery is a code generation tool. It can be used to eliminate boilerplate, but it can also be used to change the way you architect things. So here I'm using data-driven design for this feature. So if I go into BetaSettings storage, you can see how this is represented in the application. So the first section we have here, it's simply a struct that conforms to a protocol that's just a phantom protocol. This isn't anything non-Swifty. This is all pure Swift code, and I just have a couple of fields here, and I can add more fields if I want to. So for example, let's say I want to add live demos are simple, bold true. Let's say how cool is that? And let's rebuild the project and see what happens. So the only thing I did here is added a couple of variables, and then I rebuild the project. There's literally no other code I modified, right? So normally that wouldn't really change anything in regards to the user interface, but because we use Sorcery, when we rebuild, it actually generates a lot of the code based on this structure, which is why it's data-driven. I go into debug tools again, and you can see I have 2 new fields. So this is already implemented by Sorcery. So I didn't have to do anything here, but this is pretty simple. Let's say we want to have a more complex situation. So for example, I want the live demos to be an enumeration. So I'm just gonna add this type, and I'm gonna rebuild the project again. And as you can see, this is just regular Swift enum. It's just raw representable, codable, equatable, case iterable, all the built-in protocols, nothing fancy. In the meantime, I can show you how the annotation work. So for example, if I wanted to skip this variable, I can just do Sorcery, skip setting. Or if I wanted to add a float, I could do like this. Let's call this. And I can specify the range here. So let's go from -10 to 20. And next time I rebuild, you should not see this, and you should see this variable being added. So if I go into debug tools again, you can see live demos are now represented by enumeration, which you can choose. You can go and review, see what happens. So you can see that we have now enumerate like 2 new variables, an int and a float. And if we change the state of the debug tools, you can see all those information being displayed here. Let's see, what else do we want to show? Let's say we want a new section. So let's call this my new feature. And let's add some variable. So now I have this, and how do I add this new feature to the UI? So here I can just do this, my new feature link. And when I rebuild the project, I should have a section with 2 new fields. I think Sorcery is actually faster than Xcode. This is like normal pure Swift UI. So the way the code generation works, it actually allows you to add more stuff to it. You can add header or footer sections, and these are pure Swift UI implementations. So I can do basically anything you'd normally do. So you can leverage the auto generation, but then also extend each section with whatever code you want. This is why I don't generate this part. Well, I should do generate it. If I go into the generated and go to the top of the file, I can see all the sections, so I could copy this. But because very commonly you want stuff that's not just data driven, like you want a button that clears cache or anything like that, you need to have this not generated. So I can, I can change fields here, and I can see that they are actually tracked. So let's say I wanted to add a button as a footer. So I can simply do this. And that's all really. Now if I rebuild the project, I should see a button. I could have side effects here.